I want to start a business. I'm sick of being broke. I'm going to figure this thing out. I had a passion to build a company. I was tired of working for other people. And I was like, I want to figure out how the hell I can get out of there and just build my empire. You know what I mean?
Firstly, I just want to say thank you. Welcome to coming onto the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
Bro, I'm actually so pumped. Like myself and my team just so excited.
Cool, man.
I'm like, yeah, Dain.
Cool, man.
Yeah, we're getting really pumped up about things.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, like, recently for you, so like asking this question because let's start something. We've talked about some crazy like marketing before, and I'm keen to get into that a little bit more. But like, what's something recently that you've been learning that's sort of like just blowing your mind a little bit?
That's a good question. Okay, let's get personal. Let's just dive straight in. So I went to, do you know Vin Yang?
Yes.
Yeah. So funny story. So Vin Yang had a post on his Instagram, and I like viscerally knew of him through Matt. Matt was a fanboy. He's like, man, have you heard about Vin Yang? I was like, I know who Vin is. And then I followed him on Instagram because of Matt's referral. And then I realized, I've been watching this dude's content. Like, he's incredible. He's brilliant. So I followed his page, and Matt was telling me about how he hung out with Vin, and a part of me was like a little bit jealous, like, oh man, I want to hang out with cool people like Vin. Anyway, a post came up on my feed, and it was like, I'm having an exclusive event, kind of like an experimentation thing. I'm starting something new. If you're interested, click on this link and fill out this form. And it was, I think I misread it because I rushed through reading it between like calls or something at work, and I thought it said limited to 250 people. I was like, cool, I'll sign up to it. Maybe I'll get invited and I can go see Vin. And so I get an email and I send in an application like why I would love to go to this event. And it was called Recalibrate. And then I get another email back saying you've been accepted. I was like, no way, cool. Like, I'm one of the 250, right? So then I pay for my flights, pay for my accommodation, I fly down there. And I was kind of nervous. I walked into this room, and Vin is just so warm and charming. And when you meet him, it's just this, it's almost like an emotional hug. He's like, hey man, I'm really glad you're here, Dain. And like it felt like he knew a lot about me already because of my application. I'm looking around, I'm like, how are 250 people going to fit in this space? It's kind of like a cafe and a couple of couches, and it's kind of intimate with some like snacks on the table. I'm like, there's just not enough catering for 250 people. Then we walk into the room, and there's this giant auditorium with all these seats, and it's kind of like this old building. And then we sat down, but on the stage, there's 10 chairs kind of in a semicircle. And he goes, Dain, take a seat. I'm like, what's happening? Is there going to be an audience out there? He's like, Dain, there's only 10 people going to be here. I was like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, you wanted 10. I was like, no, get out of here. So over 2 days, it was just 10 people. And Vin and his friend Ali, who's also incredible, and he handed out these books. And basically, the premise of it was, I'm not here to talk to you. You're here to work on yourself, basically. And there's no judgment. But he facilitated this meeting for a couple of days. To answer your question, what's blown my mind recently, one of the things I realized was, I'm not going to give away the exercise, but during one of the exercises, we're working on our values. And I was writing down stuff like, my values are relentless, discipline, excellence, fortitude. I was like, yeah, fortitude's a cool word. Like, yeah, like, and it was all these like hyper masculine words. And I was like, man, okay, there's not really much love in here, And then through the exercise, we went back and he said, what do you need more of in your life, essentially? I was like, oh, this is interesting. Then my values of what I needed more of were quite the polarity of what I was writing down. And it was presence, family, heart and joy. And I was like, man, I do need more of this in my life. So what happened was essentially what Vin was explaining to me together with Ali was values are like outfits. And Vin had this funny story where he's like, I'm not a lazy person. And Ali's like, I am a lazy person. So he's like, I wanted to give my biggest value being lazy. And I love being lazy to Vin, which would drive Vin crazy. And then for 2 weeks, Vin said, I was proactively trying to be lazy because I need more laziness in my life. And he said he was delegating so much work to his team and realizing how much more productivity he had and how much happier he was by being a little bit lazy. So that inspired me, and I decided I'm going to start trying to be more present with my team, more present with my family, my children. I'm going to try to be more proactive with creating memories and moments with my family. And and then trying to do things with heart instead of through discipline. So I'm doing the same stuff, but I'm finding pleasure and heart in what I'm doing versus saying, I got to do this today because discipline. And also at the same time, I'm cutting out things that were a part of my discipline value, but aren't a part of my heart value. So I'm like, I've got this incredible team around me. I need to be delegating a lot more of this stuff and trusting them and doing things that make me, I guess, feel like I have heart in something. But it's just blown my mind because reality just feels totally different. I found a lot more happiness. I'm working harder, but I'm happier. My memories with my families, we're creating these beautiful moments together on the weekends to be a lot more proactive with each other. So I just think like, yeah, man, like just changing how I approach reality has just been this big shift in my life for the last, like, probably, I would say 3 months. Yeah.
Crazy. One of my mentors mentions that, like, when you change your context, it influences the content, whether it's the content of your life or whatever.
That's true.
And it's completely shifted, like, your context of, like, coming in with more heart and more love and more delegation.
Yeah. I was chatting about this with my team as well. Like, some people are like, hey man, you feel a little bit different in the workshops. So like we do these workshops with clients where I used to have this pretty epic framework and policy and methodology to get the best outcome in like a workshop with a client, like a brand strategy. It's like, why does the brand exist? Who's the target audience? What are our values? What do we believe in? What emotion are we selling? Like all these systems. And what we would find is we'd sit down with the clients and at certain points they'd hit a wall. And then what I've realized lately is like focusing more energy on the energy in the room. Like, are they enjoying the process? Are they having fun? Am I bringing heart and presence and no judgment into the meeting so they can just freely express themselves and what they're going through in their business? And then kind of loosely going through a workshop, knowing what I'm looking for, but almost in a way not having it so the client is fully aware of what I'm doing. And we're actually getting much better outcomes. They're much happier and the work is better. And the team are happy to work on the projects because they're like, everything just feels different. So it's almost like, approaching my strategic workshops with clients from a very positive, energetic place versus a disciplined place has changed how I operate my whole business.
And I'm assuming as well, you would have more energy as well, just within you, because it's not coming from like a gap mentality in terms of, oh, got to do it, got to crush, got to have. It's just like,
yeah. And I think it was like what I was feeding my mind. So like if you went to my Instagram, it was like David Goggins, like say, oh motherfucker, you know, like it was just like a lot of that kind of content. And then when I started going through my feed, I was like, maybe I should just curate what I'm consuming every day, the types of books I'm reading, even the music I was listening to, you know, like quite aggressive, like heavy metal music when I was going to the gym, just changing it to like just listening to maybe something a little bit more chill. So just being aware that what I'm feeding my mind, it has an outcome.
Yeah. It's like Vin just sort of come in there and like punch you straight in the heart.
And I think like one of the biggest moments, like just to get personal, was like there was this woman there and she was sharing her pain of her husband working a lot and not being present with her and the kids and how much weight that put on her. And I almost saw my partner in that situation. And Vin and I were crying together about her story. We're like, she's like, why are you crying? We're like, because we are realizing how we need to be more present with our kids and with our wife. And we were just so rattled by just hearing other people share their heart. And it's like when you're in a room and you're exchanging energy with people, you're like, man, I wonder if my partner feels that way. I need to work on that. And I think like, there's this humility that comes with doing deep work on yourself. And me and the team yesterday were talking about like what you would call shadow questions. What was the name of the guy who developed the psych behind that? Yeah, dude, this is really interesting. So
did you ask him also speaking to that mic?
Oh, cool.
Sure. Can't you just put number 4 up and then you can speak to that if you want?
I might use these guys throughout. That's cool. Yeah. You guys can fact check for me. But yeah, there's this thing called shadow questions. And our friend Dave was telling us how he was spending time with Chris Do, and Chris Do basically was in this sparring session with a closed group of entrepreneurs, like high level people that like own Chuck E. Cheese. Like he's in this really cool exclusive like
MMA sparring sort of.
No, like kind of verbal sparring.
Oh, verbal sparring.
So like as entrepreneurs, they were kind of doing this session where Chris was trying to be vulnerable and allowing his limiting beliefs to come up in the session, and having these other entrepreneurs that kind of creatively like are on the same level as him, able to kind of poke and prod Chris to see what weaknesses he had and if he was willing to work on them. But like, for example, I'll give you an example of a shadow question. So if you said to me, Dain, I have a bad memory, and then I said to you, when did you decide that? Right, it's a confronting question where your brain is probably like, what kind of question is that?
Yeah.
But then if you actually lean into it and try to answer it, your mind might go back to a memory of something that happened, right? If you actually sit there with that question, you go, when was the first time I decided I had a bad memory? So I did this, right? So someone that practices NLP asked me this question, and I went back to when I was 5 years old, and a teacher was getting frustrated with me and said that to me. Like, this is actually a memory, right? So like, they hit me with this question, and it's kind of like the last thing you want to do is you kind of want to go on fight or flight, like, leave me alone, what are you talking about, limiting beliefs? But if you dive into that question, this is something that me and my partner try to help each other with a lot, is if we see each other's limiting beliefs, we might pick our battles, you know what I mean? If something's recurring, like it's a pattern, she'll interrupt me and be like, she'll hit me with a shadow question. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to go sit with that for a minute. Yeah, but it's like, this isn't things people commonly talk about, but I believe it's why I have such a good relationship and why we have such a great team and a great culture, is because we really try to have, I guess, a lot of difficult conversations in our lives, but for a healthy purpose.
Yeah, and there's one reason to do it personally and professionally. And notice that when you do both, it's like they link up together and they really sort of accent each other in a really positive way. And it's like really interesting because like we teach leadership workshops, and recently we did like a tour around Australia. Yeah. And one of the things that we found in workshops, and we didn't make this up, we didn't like plan them or anything, was every single time we just instructed like people that either instructing their team or trying to get something out of the partner, or we'd like run these role play scenarios, or they wanted to connect with a brother, family member, whatever it was. We noticed that they had to connect first. So the energy in the room, and everyone would be like, that was it. Like everyone in the whole room was like, wow, you've just nailed it now because you connected first, instead of trying to talk X, Y, Z, which comes down to what you're saying before with the pure presence thing.
Yeah.
Like blew my brain because we didn't even mean it. We wrote intimacy and connection on the board. Yeah. I was like, then like it just kept coming up in every workshop. We're like, what?
Because it's a cool buzzword. Yeah. And you're like, and this is a funny one. We call this the vanilla values. So whenever we talk to a business owner, and I say this in the spooks people, I'm like, let me guess you company values. And okay. And I'm like, we're all about integrity and honesty, and we care about our customers because we want to empower them, and we want to do it with integrity, and we want to do innovative technology in our business in order to, have the XYZ in the marketplace. And people are like, yeah, that's pretty much my values. And we're like, cool. Well, like they're core to the human, experience. Like we want to be integral, we want to be caring, we want to help empower people. Like these are all things that are great. But it's like, what do these words actually mean? If you actually sit down, like what actually is empowerment? What actually is innovation? Like this is where I guess we're so busy, we don't sit down and go, what actually is intimacy? And when I was doing this exercise with Vin, I had to sit down and be like, what is presence? What does that really mean? And you can't just say, I'm going to be present. It's like, no, I need to exercise this. I need to understand, how do I do this? Because I'm not doing it in my life. Maybe it's not a part of my natural behavior set right now. So I found myself interrupting people, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll just stop interrupting and I'll just listen. Actually practicing presence, it's not easy. You know what I mean? Yeah. So when you're talking about the intimacy thing, I agree. It's you'll see couples in this logical debate, but if they just kind of put the logic down on the table and just go, let's just connect, and then let's come back to this. It's a different conversation.
It is a different conversation every single time. And as you notice, you can see it so easily. It's interesting for me, like just noticing how your brain works, how you're like picking up, we're talking about things, you're like, oh, there's these specific values here. And then they also like lead into marketing and branding for a business, because obviously you're the king at that. Like you guys and your team are like the best at it. So it's like, it's really interesting to see then how like people can have their own values, and then their companies have their own values, and then how that bleeds through absolutely everything.
Yeah. Yeah, Richard Branson has one of my favorite quotes, and he says, "What is a company? What really is it? It's a group of people, and that's about it."
That's so cool.
And I don't know who said this. We picked up this other one somewhere else. It's people will either go home from their job and they'll complain about you, or they'll share incredible stories about their day. So they'll either go home and be like, "Man, rah, my workplace," or go home and share really good stuff. There's kind of no in between. And so we were focusing on this a lot at Rival, right? So we have a company value for our company culture. So how do we define our culture at Rival, right? Be integral, be honest, all that stuff, right? That's kind of expected. Like, be a good human being. But what's our culture? And like, what is culture? And it's, when you walk in a room, you're like, there's a vibe here. There's a cluster of people and there's something happening. Like if you go to a CrossFit Games, there's a culture there.
Vibe there, man.
There's a vibe there.
It's electric.
It's electric, right? It's like, but yeah, Rival, the word we use is be a maverick. And then we define what that meant, because what we noticed is creative type people, they don't real raw creative people naturally kind of don't like to be put in a system. They like to explore, they like freedom, they like liberty, they like kind of taking their own path and things. So how do you create a company that's efficient, productive, and killing it at their work, but at the same time having a sense of freedom? So when we look to bring people into Rival, we actually screen them around how comfortable they are making their own decisions. Right. So, for example, we try to poke and prod them and see if they are kind of a rebellious natured person, because a rebellious person will naturally like to find their own way to how to solve a problem. The other thing we look for is creativity, like actual creativity. And the way we vet that is, what do you do outside of work? Which is a generic question. But we try to find like, what's the creative outlet for you outside of work? So we, have this girl on our team, her name's Em. She runs a Korean K-pop dance group. And she dances every night out in public, films it with her crew, and like it's like her livelihood. And she has this incredible like creative outlet that she has. And then the first day at work, like it showed up. We saw the creativity because she's naturally in the flow state of what creativity really is. But we see a lot of kids come in and we interview them and they don't have any creative outlets. And we're like, how do you have a design degree? Are you actually naturally a creative type person? So we look for the rebellious natured people, the creative people, and the people that love to be thrown into a problem, like enjoy it. The weird ones that are like, throw a problem at me, give me the chair now. It's like a fix for them. It's like a dopamine hit. So what we found is when we recruit people like that, they gel with each other really well because they share values and they see the world the same way and they really get along well. And we've thrown people in the mix that don't align with those values, that don't like problem solving, they don't like creativity and being rebellious. It's kind of counterintuitive to them. It's not a bad thing. It's just they're not a fit. And what happens is when they jump in the culture, they feel like an outcast. So we've had to curate it and be like, before you come in here, this is our culture, and we try to figure out if that person's a good fit. And I think so many times in companies, you have too many people that conflict in culture. So it's hard to get the energy, especially in a small business still starting up.
Yeah. No, I think it's cool actually just being able to describe the vibe.
Yeah.
Like, if like, this is like the culture, this is the vibe that I'm feeling. This is how I can describe it. Here's how someone actually matches in with it.
Yeah.
It's sort of interesting. I was thinking, like, for you and some of your knowledge from recently, is like, what do you think has in branding and like marketing changed over the last few years? Things that you're like, oh, we'd usually do this, and now we don't anymore. We completely change around. Or is it just like the foundations have just been so stable for so long?
No, it's definitely changed. Like as society, as generations change and value different things, like branding is like kind of changed quite a lot. So like if you go back to the 1940s, branding wasn't really a thing. Like it wasn't really a terminology. Like it's a hot topic right now. Like what's your personal brand? Like it's just, everyone's talking about it.
Everybody, yeah.
Tony Robbins is talking about it. Matthew McConaughey's talking about it. What's his program? The Living program. It's like discovering yourself. But yeah, you'll notice that like Brandon Bouchard, a lot of people are talking about like personal branding. It seems to be like that's digital. Yeah. And I think that's, because we're living in the digital world now and everyone's like, what's my digital, thing? So everyone's in a hot pursuit of like their thing and energy and the rest of it. But if you go back to the 40s, it was called, I guess, advertising, right? So I guess if you look at the conversational, like what's advertising, marketing, and branding, they're actually, or if you add sales, they're four very different conversations. Sales is its own thing. Marketing is its own thing. Advertising is its own thing. Branding is its own thing. So I think it's, it started with, I think it was like pottery, like people that made like clay vases and stuff. There was a guy in the 1700s that this was like the first ever trademark. He put a stamp on the bottom of his like vases because he wanted to signal to the community, I made this, it's of XYZ quality. So that's kind of where branding kind of started. You could debate that it started earlier than that. It certainly has, just naturally in culture. It's a part of the human makeup to want to express, I belong to this value system. And then we communicate that. So you can even look at how like, Native American tribes would like identify with a different set of outfits or different colors or different feathers and things like that. Like people would always be like, I'm in this tribe, I'm going to communicate what tribe I'm in. So I think that's a core part of the human makeup. But if you look at marketing and where it showed up, as you went through the 40s, 50s, and 60s, advertising was like quite a different space because you had to be really clever. Like if you go back and you type in 1950s or 1960s ads and ad campaigns, the stuff Porsche was saying, the stuff that car companies were doing, like even Nike, the Just Do It campaign. Do you know where that comes from?
No, I'm also impressed that you actually went back and researched.
Yeah, dude, I got a history minute. So quick segue into Nike then, like a history lesson. So Nike, the ad campaign, Just Do It.
Yeah.
It was a campaign that they ran, and at that time in the papers, there was someone who was literally death sentence, and it was the last thing that they said. was just do it. So it was really edgy. So they took this extremely polarizing, edgy piece of content that was kind of a part of culture, injected into their marketing. People loved it, but it resonated differently because it started to take on a new meaning. You hear it now, you don't think about a dude in an electric chair, you think about this incredible athletic brand.
Yeah, literally.
But yeah, I think, as you went through the 40s, 50s, and 60s, advertising was a way to communicate effectively with the buyer. So how they call it brand activation? Activation is like, hey, we're here, we exist, this is what we believe in and why we're great. And this is our story. And it's, how do I get you, the viewer, to connect emotionally? Not just like logically, like that makes sense, I'll buy that. But how do I get you to actually emotionally connect to my offering? How do I get you to buy in and be like, oh, I want to communicate I'm in that tribe, right? Like no one buys a Rolex to tell time, right? It's a flex. It's like, I'm in this tribe. I don't have one, by the way. I love asking people when they get a Rolex, why they bought a Rolex. They'll never tell me the honest truth. Right? So I ask entrepreneurs all the time, like, oh, why'd you buy a Rolex? Like, oh, it's a good investment. Oh, I just wanted to capture a memory. I'm like, really, bro? Like, you're trying to communicate, I'm in this tribe, I made it.
I did it, yeah.
I did it, right?
You got a Rolly baby.
I got a Rolly baby. So throughout history, advertising kind of morphed and split into two. So it was originally just advertising. That was the terminology. And it was around the 60s when people started to, maybe like the mid 50s, where people started to really dive into the psychology of like advertising, like psychopathic levels of stuff. Like,
so intense.
Like Nestle had a campaign where they tried to launch their coffee in Japan, and being a tea loving nation, they just didn't care about it. Right? They rejected coffee. They're like, keep your coffee, we're just going to continue drinking tea. But then Nestle did all the psychological research about how like children adopt things when they're young, and then like the brands you choose later in life is a lot to do with your childhood and your memories in childhood. So Nestle launched children coffee flavored. It didn't have caffeine in it, but coffee flavored lollies attached to cartoons, and like we're getting children to adopt the flavor of coffee and candy. So then 14 years later, when the coffee hits the market, it's on their palate and their mind. Right? So if you go back to the 50s,
Advertising or manipulation?
right? So this is where you get the art of manipulation, the dark arts, man. But like, yeah, in the 50s, people were starting to figure out subliminal messaging, sex sells. Like branding kind of morphed out of that. People were realizing, oh, the psychological human experience can be manipulated for people to buy product. So advertising became the avenue of which you grab someone's attention. Like if I put an ad in the paper or an ad on a billboard, like it's like me placing a brand activation somewhere. But what is the message in that psychological, emotional experience? That's branding. So branding isn't what you tell me you are. Branding is my opinion of you, my experience of you. What's my perception of you? How do I feel about Nike? How do I feel about Apple? How do I feel about Harley Davidson? Right. And this is where branding is more about, like, for example, Harley Davidson. They don't sell motorcycles. They sell liberty and freedom and the ability to go away on the weekend and be alone. They sell the emotional package. That's the branding experience. Marketing is the system that makes sure that you find it and buy it. The sales is the conversion piece, and the advertising is the intention piece. So like marketing, advertising, sales, and branding, you need all of them to succeed in business at scale. But you can get a hell of a long way just on sales. You can just be an incredible sales guy or gal and make a lot of money. But at some point, if you're trying to scale beyond you and grow a team around you and have them have success as well, and maybe they're not as good at the craft as you are, if you can build a brand and a reputation in the marketplace and get a perception in people's minds, and they're like, oh, that agency is really good, or that team's really good, or that person, Gary's really good. I guarantee his agency, VaynerMedia, is great. Let me reach out to VaynerMedia. I'm sure they could help me. That's branding, when you don't need to depend on sales anymore and you can kind of permeate culture. So for me, the difference in the last maybe 20 years of branding has really started to become very culture driven. Like, I belong to this tribe. I identify as this kind of person. I'm a CrossFit person, so I'm going to wear Row Fitness gear. You know what I mean? So it's a communication of, this is who I am. This is where I belong.
Yeah, that's crazy. I love how like you articulated that. It's like some of that was like, oh wait, sorry, I'm joking. No, I love it. That's what I can resonate with you, because like I'm a nerd as well. I nerd out and stuff and just get like obsessed with things, read about it and just like go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
That's some of the best things ever. That's like one thing that I related with you when you were talking at the One Life event. I was like, oh my gosh. Loves to study. Yeah, loves to study and like learn things. Yeah. That's really cool.
Thanks.
I'd like to know, like, for you, like, what were some of your biggest struggles for you in regards to learning all of this and bringing it to life?
Yeah, good question. I think like as cliche as this is, my belief in myself, right? So I remember, because my background, I worked in when I was young, when I was 19, I was a graphic designer, and I worked in a little t-shirt store in the Sunshine Plaza on the Sunshine Coast called T-Base. If anyone around here's been there. I worked in T-Base. Yeah, so I used to design the t-shirts and place them in the store, and I was really good at graphic design. And then I kind of just pursued money. I was like, oh, I'm going to go become, like, there's no money in design, so I'm going to go become a sales guy. You know, I started listening to all the podcasts and all the books and, you know, listening to all the content. And like, yeah, you know, Jack and Bones, cold calling, door knocking. Like, I went in deep, man. I went full deep into
door knocked as
well. Yeah, dude.
Respect for that.
Door knocking.
Good color.
I was one of the psychopaths that enjoyed it.
Really?
Yeah.
Jacked up beforehand.
Like a hit.
Heavy metal on before.
Yeah. Like Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been a car salesman. So I've done all the cringe sales stuff. I've been a car salesman, telecom, door knocking, cold calling. I've done all of the cringy stuff.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I liked being told no. I was like, oh, challenge. I wonder if I can get a yes on the next one. Whereas, you know, the guys around me would just get crushed if they got told no. I'm like, it's cool. Like, it's just a game of numbers and skill. And one mentor I had in business, and this is kind of stuck with me through all my experiences. And then I'll get back to answering your question around like the biggest challenges. He's like, you know, if you're a salesman and you get 1 out of 10 people you speak to sell, he's like, cool. Can you repeat that number? Every 1 out of 10, every 1 out of 10, every 1 out of 10. Then can you push it to 2, then to 3, then to 4, right? And I did that with my agency. So like a lot of my, I guess, struggles back in my sales era have fed through to the success of my business. But in business, I would say the biggest struggle I had was just like when I started, my belief in myself, right? Because I had 200 grand debt. I had my partner, you know, I was trying to get a second job because I was struggling. Like, I remember calculating my money at the end of the week and going, I don't know if I can afford enough groceries this week. And I just felt like a failure as a man. Like a part of me, I wanted to provide for my partner. I'm like, man, I'm in all this debt. I just felt like a bit of a loser. I'm like, you know, even having conversations, Hormozy style, where it's like, you don't have to be with me. I'm kind of like not doing so great. You know what I mean? And she always was like, I got your back. Like, we're in this together, right?
And it melted your heart.
Yeah, it always melted my heart. And, you know, hearing Alex Hormozy stories, like, oh man,
it hits you.
Yeah, it hits me. Because it was like, it's a moment where I had that experience. I just felt like a failure and a loser. And I remember, I'll share the story in a different way because I've shared it a bunch of other ways before, but, you know, we're getting personal, man. We're friends now, dude, right? So I was at the Success Resources event in 2018. And basically it's 5,000 people in a room with back-to-back speakers. And I actually went there because I was like, I want to start a business. I'm sick of being broke. I'm going to figure this thing out. I had a passion to build a company. I was tired of working for other people. And I was like, I want to figure out how the hell I can get out of debt and just build my empire. You know what I mean? Like discipline, freedom, you know, like David Walker style. So I was sitting there in the crowd and back-to-back speakers getting up, selling their boot camps. And I remember Grant Cardone, because being a sales guy, man, I love Grant Cardone, right? He gets up on stage, he's literally throwing money in the audience. And Australians, if you don't know an Australian, they hate showboating and braggadocious energy, but I was loving it.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I want to, you know, I felt like I was the only person in the room fired up about what he was talking. Maybe like 8 other sales guys were like, and then everyone else just had their arms crossed and weren't loving it. And I remember, you know, he was saying, I got this boot camp, it's my first boot camp ever in Australia. And I was like, yes, my hero, I'm going to get to go to his boot camp. And I remember without even thinking about it, he's like, if you want to sign up to my boot camp, go to that side of the room, sign up, and I'll see you there. I was like, yes. And I literally ran to the side of the room, like in front of 5,000 people, right? I'm like, I'm going to sign up. And I'm looking around, I'm like, no one else is signing up. This is kind of awkward. And then I went to the girl and I was like, hi, like, do you do payment plans? You know, I'm broke as shit. Like, I got like maybe $17 in my bank account at that point, right? And she's like, yeah, we do payment plans. It's $1,500 a fortnight for like eight, wow, it's for like 3.5 months or something like that. I was like, I didn't even make that. You know what I mean? I'm like, how am I going to pay that? And I remember in that moment, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I got so emotional because, you know, when you're so hyped up and then like something stops you in your tracks, right? So I'm fired up. I'm like, yes, like, I'm so electrified that I'm going to do this and I'm going to change my life. And then it's like, boom, you just got shut down again. You can't afford to go to this boot camp. You're a loser. You can't provide for your partner. Right? And I didn't find this out till later, but Ellie, she was next to me. She was like pumped for me to do this boot camp. And then I looked at her and I think my face had this expression on it that like was quite depressing.
Was it ghastly?
Yeah, it was ghastly. She got rattled by it. She's like, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm like, cool. And I remember sitting down. I was literally fighting tears. Like I'm sitting next to my friends and I'm like, man, I feel like even more of a loser because I'm trying not to cry because I can't afford this boot camp from Grant Cardone. I just felt like a real piece of shit. And I had my arms crossed. I was like, man, maybe I might just go home. I might just leave. I don't want to be here. Like my energy was just really rough. And people around me were like, you okay, man? Yeah, I'm fine. It's cool. You know, like, just can't wait for Gary, you know? And then I didn't find out till later that Ellie went to the bathroom and cried for an hour. Yeah, because I was wondering where she went. She was crying because she felt like she was failing me. She felt like, because we combined our debt, she's like, she felt like she was holding me back. So we both kind of felt like shit. Anyways, Gary comes out after like 7.5 hours of this stuff, runs out on stage. And it was like the perfect moment because I just felt like you can't get any worse than this. I'm like, why am I even here? I spent $200 and all are they getting here? And it's just a waste of time now. I don't have money for groceries. Like literally don't have money for groceries because I'm here. So it just felt like crap. Gary runs out. The first thing he says is, I'm not here to sell you shit. He's like, what up, Brisbane? I'm not here to sell you shit. Everyone loses their minds because they've been sold to all day. And all he had behind him was 1-800-GARY. And he did Q&A for 2 hours. But basically in the Q&A, I was just hearing all these people asking these questions. And you know what, we're talking before about limiting beliefs. I just was like witnessing hundreds of people asking these very simple questions. And I noticed the pattern was like, everyone just has a limiting belief. They don't believe in themselves. That's what I saw, right? Studying NLP and knowing psychology. I was like, hang on a second. I'm that fucking guy. I'm the guy with the giant limiting belief. I don't need a boot camp. Like I made this decision in that moment. Like I can just fucking start my business tonight. I'm a sales guy. I know design, I know marketing, I know advertising. So on the drive home, I'm like flooring it. And my missus is like, why are you speeding? I'm like, I can't wait to get home and start my business. She's like, what are you talking about? And I just told her, I was like, I'm going to start an agency and it's going to be massive and I'm going to love doing it. And she's like, cool, man. Like, I'm going to support you. And I was like, I need to use that last like $17 we have to like buy a subscription to Photoshop. And that night I downloaded Photoshop and I started DMing people on Facebook and Instagram, like, hey, do you need a business card? Like I knew a lot of PTs and like people that ran companies. I'm like, do you need business cards? Do you need posters? Do you need a logo? And I was sending out literally hundreds of messages like this first night. I woke up the next day and I had like 14 leads. And it was like $25, $50 leads. But I was like, I'm doing it. I'm building my business, you know? So within the period of 24 hours, that was the biggest challenging moment, was like when I sat there in the audience and felt like I had no hope. That was the moment where I felt the shittest, was when just the little push I needed to realize I'm the problem. The reason I'm here feeling sorry for myself and feeling like a lot of life loser is because I decided to. I didn't have to feel that way. I chose to feel that way. And when I chose to take my power back and go, you know what, like, I'm in this position because of me, I can get out of it because of me, right? So I just made that commitment, and I didn't think about the idea of like, wouldn't it be nice? It was more like, I'll run through a fucking wall to make this happen. That was my attitude from that day, and it hasn't been a day since where I doubted it.
Yeah.
I just committed that day and married the idea. Yes.
You're really gonna have the breakdown to get to the breakthrough. And it's so interesting. This moment, because you're like, down.
Yeah.
Boom, through.
Like, also having rock bottom. It's like a rubber band. It was about snapping and let go and bang, you know. And I was doing 18, it got ridiculous. I was working like 18-hour days, 7 days a week, just get after it, you know, because my values were relentless. It got me through that season, and then I realized, okay, I got to come back and have a bit more presence and be a bit more connected to my family.
That's insane. What an insane story. I'm so happy that you like reflected on it and can describe it in a way, because it's like really powerful, especially for yourself. Like, I'm sure like when things get difficult, you think back to that and be like, I really have to do here is send 100 DMs.
Dude, sell this, right? Yeah. I was like, if I can get 1 out of 10, that's good. Yeah. But I remember the first $50 that hit my bank was like, it was like a heroin shot, man. I was like, whoa, I just made my own money. I'm like, what's possible now, you know? So it just became like validation, you know? And I tried not to have external validation, but that was a moment where like a little bit of external validation just propelled me a little bit and was like, hey, you can do this.
Yeah, it's like such a good and beautiful moment. What about in terms of scaling your business? Okay, because things get a little bit more different, especially when you've got like a relationship and there's like children in there as well. And then there's like, you know, the moving a team. And then as you know, it's like the more people that you work with, the deeper you have to go, because like self-awareness, because that reflects back into the team and everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, cool, man. So we're going deep. Hiring my first person was terrifying. And I remember talking to my coach and saying like, dude, I'm working 18-hour days. And he's like, how much money are you making? And I was making good money, bro. I was making my annual wage in a month. Like double what my annual wage in my previous job was in a month, right? And I was stacking it up. And I was like, I bought a car and a couple other things. It's like, dude, why are you hiring people? And I was terrified to be responsible for someone else's life. You know, I
had a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure. Like just a year ago, I couldn't even, you know, pay for like my groceries, and now I got to be responsible for someone else. So I had to go through this transition of like, I don't need to do more. I need to become someone else. I need to work on like, what kind of guy do I need to be comfortable hiring someone else? And then I just decided, I'm just going to do it, figure it out through it, right? So I hired someone, and it was the most uncomfortable experience, because you got to figure out all the paperwork and everything. You're like, oh my God, like it's like adopting a child for me. Because like, I'm responsible. Do I have to feed them? Yeah, I just felt so much pressure to like provide for someone else. And then I realized like, oh, this is like really cool, because like I explained to them like, this is a startup, there's a lot of risk. They took a pay cut to come on board, and they were just excited. They were just pumped to be on the journey. And then every time I hired someone, we made more money, because we're just more productive, more efficient, getting more done, more ideas on the table. We're increasing our prices. Now we're at 22 people, right? And it's like yesterday, my team are like, we're hiring this person. I'm like, cool. Like such a different experience than 2 years ago, right? Like, and 2 years ago, I was like, oh my God. And then yesterday I was like, oh, you guys, okay, you hired, okay, sweet. Like, crush your team, you know. So you just start to realize that like everything is not like meaningless, but everything is kind of like small in the scale of things. It's just our emotion that makes things have weight.
Yeah.
So when I went through that moment, that was scary. The other scary moment in my business was I had this guy that worked for me, a friend of mine, like a good friend that took me in when me and Ellie were through a hard time. Incredible person. I have a lot of love for them still. And they came into my business early on when we were about maybe 6 people. And one of the hardest working, most disciplined, relentless, like ball-busting badasses that ever worked for me. Like, honestly, just workload was insane. However, we were constantly clashing horns to a point where I didn't want to wake up in the morning.
Ooh.
Like, I remember just waking up and being like, I don't want to get on Zoom. I don't want to deal with this. And that same week was when my daughter Harlow was born. So she turned 3 next month. And so my first child, I got 2 children. Joey's 6 months old. I got a boy and a girl. We're close to business. But I remember I was going through this experience. I'm like, man, like I can't stand being in this predicament. I felt sick and I felt like I couldn't run the company the way I wanted to run it. Like every time I made a decision or had an idea, it was like, that doesn't work for this reason. That doesn't work for that reason. It's not for, you know, so I was like, man, like this is my company. You know what I mean? Like I had to grow through that too. And this person had a little bit of equity in the business as well. So then essentially paid them out, went our separate ways. But when my daughter was born, I remember holding her in my arms and just realizing similar thing, like I'm responsible for this person. Like life took on a new meaning. And in that moment, I was like, I got to make some changes in my life. I got to protect her. It was like almost like Final Flight. Like I am like this warrior and she's my princess and I got to like make sure that like she's protected. So the next week when I came back to work, I was like, we have to go our separate ways. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done, right? Because it's a friend, it's a brother, it's someone I love. But it was the best thing because after that, the business slingshot. Because it was almost like I was running my business at that point in gut and intuition, not on logic. Like I remember my accountant saying, dude, you should park this money. Instead of going hiring another 3 people, you should go buy a house. You should invest. You should diversify. And I was like, no, I'm going to go hire 3 people. So like, it's so funny. Like it's weird. The hardest thing was just trusting my gut. You know what I mean? Like it was like my gut was screaming at me and I had to listen to it. And that was one of the most terrifying things in my life was just learning to kind of trust my gut and what it felt like I should be doing.
Yeah, especially in the point when like you love someone so much because you spend them every single day. Like I always say, like to my guys, I'm like, you guys are literally more important to me like than my entire family, like straight up. And I would die for you guys, like straight up. So like our dynamic for how we work is like really beautiful of how we look after each other. So like 100% food. I haven't like had to let like anyone go or anything. So like just thinking about it, I'm like.
It's tough, man. That's a good thing, though, dude. Yeah, it's a good thing. You know, and it sucks when you have to fire someone. But the weird thing is, like every time it's happened, it's always pointed our culture back to where it needed to be. Now we don't have really any turnover. No one wants to leave. It's great. Yeah, we're in a really good culture, and we're not perfect. We're always trying to improve things, but I think, those are probably the biggest moments, man. Yeah, those 2 moments. Yeah,
crazy.
Yes,
and. Well, I think my audience will kill me if I don't ask you some branding and marketing tips. Like,
go for it, bro.
Well, yeah. So, like most of my audience, they're either, I would say, in the middle of their business journey. Yeah. So they're probably operating around the 20 to 60K a month area. Or they've just quit their job. Yeah. And they're like, let's go. Like that's the 2 different energies.
Yeah, like me at the start and me influencing.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of like marketing with their brands, we get a lot of people who are doing like an e-com or Amazon. We have people that are PTs, and we have a lot of people who have tradie businesses. Yeah. Like they're like
e-com, PTs, tradies.
E-com, PTs, tradies. Yeah. The main ones. Some marketers, but mainly those. And they're just like, that want to get out there, crush it. Now some of their brand and marketing.
Yeah, man. I guess like for e-com, some of the things I'm noticing with that is for sure like the e-com brands that we're working with, it's being very conscious about how you position your branding. Because I think, we're on an international stage with e-com. Like we're competing with people all around the world. And, like just the basics, right? What's your AOV? What's your conversion rate? Like what's
an AOV?
AOV is like an average order value. So like, for example, on an e-commerce store, if you click through the Shopify links, you can see the AOV. Essentially, it's like on average over all your purchases, what's the average? So if it's less than $86, like you're probably not in a prime position to be doing advertising because you don't have the capital to spend a good amount of money in ads. So I think from my experience, what we've learned with e-commerce is like, how do we really have an incredible online store experience? Because if you think about it, that's the sales engine room for your company.
Yeah.
And I see stores every day for people that are making 2, 3, 4, 5 million per annum, and they've been doing it for a couple of years. And their stores are templates that are downloaded with photos that are stuck in there. And I'm like, dude, damn, like you're making $4 million a year on this site. Like, awesome. And they're like, yeah, my conversion rate is 6%. I'm like, cool, but it could be 10. So I think like when it comes to branding, like imagine you go into a retail store. Those retail stores where like everything's like crammed. It's kind of, it's like going to Big W, but then you go into another store and you're like, wow, like those experiences where you want to spend money. Like, this is so cool. I want to spend money. So for me, we spent a lot of time in like, how do we use design to get people emotional? So if I land on your online store, is it just logic? Like, here's the features and benefits and why the product's great and you should buy it, and here's a photo of it. Or are you really putting on some theater? I learned this from Simon Beard at Culture Kings, is like, so many businesses don't execute on theater.
Whoa. So how do you like evoke emotion?
Theater? Well, if you look at Culture Kings and what Simon Beard has done, and for those that don't know his story, he went from working at the markets to, a $600 million brand in the period of like 11 years, and going international and launching a store in the biggest space in the Caesars Palace in Las Vegas.
Pioneer.
Yeah, pioneer.
He's a pioneer.
He's a pioneer. But what I learned from spending time with him, because I've had the pleasure of working on the update of the logo and the update of the Culture Kings brand, was that he's all about theater, right? And I met his sister, and she works at Citibank. We're having this funny conversation about like, she's like, yeah, he's kind of like a carny. Like, he really enjoys putting on a show for people and getting them fired up. And he was telling me this story about like when he was at the markets and he realized that people wanted to buy, American Apparel, because you couldn't really buy cool American shoes and gear in Australia. So he had this little market store where he was selling cameras and then like Dickies pants and like cool shoes and stuff, right? And he said that the reason he was able to move so much product at the markets wasn't because he was sitting down. When you go to the market, someone's sitting down, they're like, hi, how are you today? He's like, what's up, man? He's like, what up, man? He was, dude, do you like wearing deep? Like, he was just like, yeah. And he said this high warmth, high confidence, right? So he was like, how do I make you feel like I care about you, and how do I give you some confidence by an energy exchange? And he said he was putting on a show every week with his partner, Tani, at the markets. Then he realized that, he wanted to do that in retail. So when he went into retail, everything he did was about culture. Like, if you think about b-boy, basketball, culture, it's braggadocious, it's loud, it's hedonist, it's thrill-seeking. So he realized the culture of his audience were all about that lifestyle. And he's like, how do I communicate that I am that to them? So rather than just being like a store that sells a product that they want, how do I put on theater that is exciting to them? How do we act rebellious? How do we break the rules? How do we put a DJ booth into our store and an escalator you have to come down into and it's under the ground? Like, the whole thing is an experience. Everything's lit up. You feel like you're in this weird nightclub that sells sneakers. But back to the e-com, what he was saying with e-com is like, you have to kind of have a brand that symbolizes something. So if you look at Gymshark, it symbolizes like the epitome of working out in a gym and flexing on that. If you look at Culture Kings, it's about thrill seeking and like having game and, having that symbol of street cred, you know what I mean? So how do you make your e-commerce store like kind of a beacon or a cultural symbol for your audience? But where people get stuck on this is they want to sell everything to everyone. And I think the biggest challenge that people have is they don't lean into differentiation because they're so scared that they're going to turn off their audience. But you'll actually turn on a small audience and have them come back and buy more product by being more engaged in that. For PTs, I would say like personal branding is enormous. I meet a lot of PTs that try to create a program or a business or a boot camp. But I would say like from my experience and the PTs that I'm seeing in the world that are absolutely killing it is don't just try to go on your page and spruik and sell and promote your boot camp because there's 4 kinds of content. We talked about this at the One Life event. You're saying, please buy my shit content, right? You're entertaining people and, making them laugh and giving them a dopamine shot. Then there's like content where you're trying to, I guess, like tell stories and educate and like be sharing ideas that are like actually helpful to other people and all the rest of it. And it's like, if you're a PT, you should focus on how do I give away everything I know every day for free on social media.
It's pretty much like every PT, every coach, anyone who's trying to, any sort of person.
Anyone who's trying to be a personal brand, I think that the art of it is rather than having a paywall where you kind of like, oh, I got to reserve my good stuff for my course. I got to reserve my good stuff for my programs, my boot camps. Here's the cool thing. If you just take, let's just say like a 15-minute thing and make it 90 seconds, but then remix it, right? So like add theater to it, add drama to it, share a story. You can share the same piece of information 100 different ways, depending on how you like put it together. And content is like, how do I give away this feeling, this idea, this concept, this story for free consistently on social media? Because people will pay you because they connect with you. So I was chatting to Matt about this, and let's just say you listen to Joe Rogan for 20 hours. You'll start to emotionally have a connection with Joe Rogan. If you ever see him in public, your heart will flutter a little bit. You're like, oh my God, it's Joe Rogan. You know what I mean? Because we build like psychological relationships with people that are like figurative ideas in our minds, like people we aspire to be like, people we want to meet one day, So I think when you're trying to create content as a PT or anything of that measure, I say this and it doesn't really always land, but genuinely just give away all your shit for free all the time, and you're probably going to suck at it. The second thing is when you're making content, try not to be sporadic. Because I see people go hard for a couple of days and then they disappear for 2 weeks. They go hard for a day or two, then they kind of ebb and flow in and out. What I've found is with my students is if you just commit, let's just say, whatever challenge you want to take on board. But I try to encourage people to do a 90-day challenge. And that 90-day challenge is, okay, for the next 90 days, no Netflix, no porn, no like video gaming, like no, just like starve yourself of the normalities of what you try to cram into your day. Because the average person spends 4 hours on Netflix or entertainment or on their phone every day. The average person, right?
Correct.
So if you just starve yourself of that and you just go, okay, I'm going to replace this time with educating myself on the thing I want to teach as much as possible. Podcasts, books, audio tapes, programs, courses, whatever it is, like get obsessed like I did about branding, about your thing. And then just distribute one piece of content every day, even if it's crap. Just put it out there, because one or two things will happen if you put it out, even if it's crap. Number one is it'll force you to come back better the next day. So you can try to bury it. Like try to bury that crap piece of content as soon as you can. The second thing is you'll learn something. So you'll post something that you'll feel like is crap, and then someone will have a reaction to it and DM you and be like, yeah, I needed to hear this today. Such and such happened because of it. Thank you so much. You're like, wow, okay, something I hated actually really impacted someone. So then what can I learn from that? And if you do this every day for 90 days, what happens is by day 90, you know a hell of a lot about what does work and a hell of a lot about what doesn't work on your feed. And you've basically done market research. And if you do it with the intention of not serving your current audience, but trying to attract a new audience, and then every time you post a piece of content, go to other people's pages that post the same piece of content or similar types of content to you that are really good at it, and like engage with all the people in their comment section. Because what happens is if you're engaging with people in the comment section that like similar content, they're going to go, who's this guy or gal? And go back to your page and go, they have similar content, the type of content I like to engage with, follow. You're not trying to do this to get followers. You're trying to do this to create like a little community of engagers. Because here's what happens, and this is the biggest hack I can give anyone that's trying to grow on social media. And this is the stuff that no one wants to do. Who wants to go on Instagram and comment and engage with people, right? It's boring as shit, and I'm too busy because I run a business and all the rest of it. But if you can just get out of your own ego, out of your own way, and just go, okay, I'm gonna uninstall Disney Plus and Netflix and all the rest of it. I'm just gonna remove all these distractions in my life. And here's what I would do. You go on social media and you find the 10 greatest people in the world. You do your research. The 10 greatest people in the world that do what you do, right? So I was like, who are the greatest people in the world of branding? I'm like, Simon Sinek, right? Marty Neumeier, Mark Ritson. I was looking at all these different people that I'm like, man, these people kill it at branding, right? And then I looked at all their content. But then I went the other way and I was like, who else is kind of like doing cool content that's not in my industry, but I really enjoy? So then I went and found like cool people that do design, and you do your research in your own industry. Then you follow those pages and you kind of start unfollowing the stuff that's just irrelevant, because you're trying to train your algorithm. Like, this is what I am.
Yeah. I adjust my feed all the time.
Adjust your feed to fit your industry, right? So if you're trying to sell, a certain type of product, tell the algorithm with the hashtags and the content you follow and the algorithm you're interacting with, like, this is what I am and what I'm about and what I like to look at. This is the second thing. So before you comment, 20 minutes, just flat out, comment on people that have recently posted content, like the content you're about to post. Like, it has to be recent. Try to find the recent stuff. And then you engage with all their comments. Then you post, then you feature it in your story. And then maybe you send it to a couple of people that you're like, hey man, I noticed you were commenting on this other piece of content. I made a similar piece of content, check it out. You can't be like, look at me, but I'm like, hey, I noticed you like that piece of content. I made something, I just thought of you and I answered your question, you comment on that thing. It's like genuine engagement. What happens is, maybe next time you post, if you do that enough and you stack that for 90 days, you can have 200, 300 people commenting on your 90th post because you're genuinely engaged with them in something that they're interested in. And then you start to befriend those that make similar content. But this is something that I've shared a lot, but I've tracked it and maybe less than 1% of people actually implement it.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. It's not easy, but you have to genuinely enjoy the journey to conquer social media.
And if what you want to is like bad enough, especially when it comes to community, because as you know, like everything that you've done, that's literally just straight up community building. And that's that general, we said before, it was like intimacy and connection. That's that general connection piece that's like missing. Like, no, I genuinely want to help these people, regardless of the situation, regardless if they give the money. If I'm connected enough to what I want to do, I'm going to damn well help.
Yeah. And I would do stuff like, if people ask me a question, I'd send them a voice memo back. Like, I would spend north of 3 hours a day just engaging on social media. But here's the thing. I did that for the first year, and I haven't really done that for the last couple of years because, it's built enough momentum where I don't need to. It's just that spark. Like, do you want to create this combustible engagement reaction on social media? Now, I guarantee if I went back and did that, I'd have more engagement, right? This is something we're considering doing. It's like, how do we do this at scale? But if you're starting and you have like 300 followers, you don't need 10,000 followers to make the money you need to make every month. People have this perception in their head, oh, if I could get to 10,000 followers, I could become a millionaire, right? I was making, a lot of money with 2,000 followers and a lot of people engaging and genuinely enjoying my content. I was genuinely solving people's problems, and they would get annoyed, and I would get DMs like, man, why don't you have 100K followers, man? I'm going to feature my stories and try. Like, people get annoyed at how big my page was because they're like, the value's correct. You're killing it. You're dropping bombs every day. I would get hundreds of DMs like, why don't people know? And then they start navigating it. So like, the game is like, how do I be the most valuable in my niche on social media, period?
Yeah.
Like, how do I become the best?
And how do you genuinely find that you connect with people? Like, what's the why behind it? And how do you actually genuinely connect with people?
Like, how do I genuinely connect with people in the DMs, or like, how do I try to create my content?
Well, I'd say a bit of both.
Okay.
Because I know there's like a connection piece there. I know you might have like a couple of different strategies, but it's just like connection in general. So I'm like actually interested like in what happens, not specifically like almost what you do. It's like, how do you think about it?
Yes.
And like motivates you to go and do it.
Yeah, I think it's the frequency by which someone experiences you. So for example, like, right, if you listen to Joe Rogan every day for, let's just say, an hour, right? you got to feel pretty damn connected to Joe Rogan, right? Because when you meet someone, like we've spent maybe about an hour and a half together, right?
Yeah.
If you and I were to spend 7 hours together, we would have a much deeper friendship. Like if you spend 7 to 15 hours with someone, you actually build a relationship.
Yeah.
In some regard, like that person becomes something in your life.
Yeah.
Right. If you spend that much time with them, but people are doing this virtually, digitally, right? So, they listen to their favorite music artist, or they, Taylor Swift. Like people were going crazy when Tay came to Australia, bro.
Crazy.
And I haven't met her, but they're like, funny story, right? So in our office, we got a lot of Tay fans, and when she had a Red album, everyone wore red to work. Like, it was like, yeah, dude. Like the team went mad. I didn't wear a red shirt. I'm like, I don't listen to Tay. I respect it, but Anyway, she was coming to Australia, and our whole office had their tablets, their laptops, their screens, their phones open, trying to get tickets. Australia, bro, like the whole office were like on standby.
Did anyone get one?
We got 2 tickets.
Oh, nice! Congrats to those people.
Congrats to those people, but heaps of people missed out. It was like, it was an ordeal. The point is, people are really connected to her because they love her music. And like, here's the thing: how do you have social media content that is that same emotional mechanism on social media? So I think video interactivity and content interactivity, like graphic design content, they kind of interact differently. I definitely think video content is a lot more emotionally gripping, but some people connect by reading. So there's different types of people. Some people prefer audio, some people prefer video, some people prefer face-to-face, live. Some people prefer to read. So I try to kind of hit all the melodies. I try to have audio content, I try to have visual content, video content, all the rest of it. But what I found was like, the way I connect with people was by showing up and genuinely be like, here it is for free. Here it is for free. It's all for free. Here you go. Like not spruiking. And if rarely saying, I got this thing, if you want to come check it out, I got a live event, if you want to come there, right? So I rarely ask for anything. Like Gary Vee's jab, right hook.
Yeah.
I think, and then the second thing I do to connect with people is I actually reply to all my DMs, every single one. And sometimes I get 200, 300, 400 DMs a day, and I'll reply to every single one. If I get time, I'll send them a voice message. If they have a good question, I'll actually connect with them. If they send something valuable to me, I'll try to go out and I kind of match their energy. Right, if they're trying to sell me something, I try to sell them something.
Like that, yeah.
Hey man, dude, I'm like, hey dude, I got this epic content creation program. Like I try to sell people, try to sell me. So I just have this rule, I just match their energy. If someone's trying to give me a compliment, I give them a compliment. If they comment, I give them a comment back. If they send me a voice memo, I voice memo them back. So like people are just so shocked that you actually engage with them. But I don't just say thanks. I like try to go out of my way to give more value in the DMs. So if you kind of message them back like my friend would, rather than trying to be all professional, what I noticed is it kind of cuts the ice. So just think you take, like, if some random DMs you a question, like message it back like you'd message your bro back. And for whatever reason, it kind of like cuts the ice and then people really start to open up. I've had people open up about their whole lives in my DMs.
Yeah.
Jump on a call and invest like money into, hiring my agency.
Yeah, it makes sort of sense because what I find is like everyone at the moment is so hungry for just genuine authenticity.
Yeah.
And that whole connection thing as well. And it's so awesome that you can do that digitally.
Yeah.
With people.
Like, it's free.
That is free.
That's free marketing.
Yeah. And it's genuine connection as well. Like it's actually genuine. Like, which I find is like so crazy. Like, especially when you'd think like over social media or not. Like, I think it was somewhere that I was reading or researching, like don't quote me on it, but it's like your brain, I think it was one of Daniel Priestley's books. And he was saying in there that, your brain doesn't really know the difference if you're talking to someone.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't, like if you're watching a movie, when you cry when you watch Braveheart or like, that moment where that gets in the feels. I think like your brain psychologically doesn't know what social media is. We're not engineered to know what digital technology is, right? So when you're talking to someone online, this is why people get in relationships. Have you seen the show Catfish?
No, I haven't.
They're like DMing people and having full-blown marriages. They've never even met them, right? Because they're emotionally connected. Watch Catfish. It's a pretty wild show. But don't if you're on a 90-day brand plan. But like people like for sure, like that thing, right? If you spend enough time listening or consuming someone's content, you will feel an emotional connection to that person as though they're someone in your life that you spend time with. It's in your brain. It's no different.
Yeah, and they actually know a lot about you as well, which is, well, I love having you on the show because I like to leave our listeners a challenge, something that we like talked about that they can like take action on. It's like today, tomorrow, so they're listening to this and they're like, oh, I'm fired up right now. I'm going to take action on something. What would you like to challenge them?
I would challenge anyone that is considering, like, I think social media is such a good channel. It's free. It's accessible to everyone. And the analogy I use, it's like a library. Everyone has access to the library, right? So my challenge is like, think about yourself when you're on social media content, think like an author. Don't think like a salesman. So if a salesman would walk into a library and go, where can I put a poster and sell my stuff? An author would walk in a library and go, man, where can I create some content and give to these people to consume, right? So when you walk into a library, what people do, they're there to go, I want to go entertain myself. I want to go immerse myself in a story. I want to go laugh. I want to go research. I want to go study. Like, people are there for a reason. People go on social media for escapism most of the time. The rare person might go on there to learn some stuff, but if someone's going to learn something, they might go to like a bigger platform like YouTube or buy a program or whatever, right? But you're kind of catching people in situ and you're trying to get their attention. So you certainly need to stand out and be strange. So my challenge would be on social media, think about yourself like, I'm creating content for people to consume for free that are in situ and they want to stack on it. So you can't give them big hefty stuff. But I would challenge anyone that wants to scale their company, to take social media seriously and to become someone that's providing value for free, and do it every day for 90 days. Even if you put up a quote today because you don't have time to make a video, and then you make a video tomorrow and then you hate how you look because you got a double chin and you look greasy, whatever, just post it anyway. Like, post something every day for 90 days. And even if you limit yourself to 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, whatever it is, just challenge yourself to do it for 3 months straight. And you'll either learn you love it or hate it.
Yeah, I love that. And just to like add on to that as well, just like a little sub question on there is, here's a little bit of challenge on this, because I know that you would know some wacky, strange shit that people have done for marketing and branding campaigns. And I'm asking you this question because I want to like motivate people to do something wacky and strange, like be seen on social media and something that they love.
Yeah.
What are some things that have been really abnormal but really successful that you've seen that's like?
There's this TikTok channel at the moment. I don't know if this is going to help people, but it's funny. There's this person, you don't see their face, they're just rolling bottles of stuff downstairs and and they were making, was I chatting to you about that, Kate? I don't know who I was chatting to about. This person is making about $1 million to $2 million a week, rolling bottles downstairs and smashing. Because this just became this meme or this thing, right? But I think if you're trying to genuinely just give value, I would say like here's the game plan. Like, people try to approach social media and like want to go straight. Like, it's like a comedian going on stage for the first time and they want to get their Netflix special. Like, you're not gonna get your special day 1 or day 90, right? You gotta go out there and like look at social media kind of like you're going up to the mic every night and you're freestyling. Because you don't know what material is going to work. You don't know what's going to land, what people are going to react to or not. So I would approach social media kind of like that. But I think, what should you think about? I'll chat to Matt Purcell, and we were chatting about this earlier. Like, if you're standing on a street corner and you're walking down the street, what's going to get your attention, right? Because you're only really paying attention to a certain amount of things at any given time. But if you're walking down the street and you see someone with a gun, right? Or you see a red sign that says danger, like, or cones going around, something like that's danger would get your attention, right? This is like brands like Liquid Death, they use danger to get your attention. In the water aisle, you see skulls and death. The second thing is like sex. For sure, sex sells, right? Like, if you see what's going on with the internet, sexual stuff certainly does get quite a lot of attention.
OnlyFans funnel. Just do a fake link.
Yeah, just do a fake link, right? I've considered doing that just to see if people would click on it. If I had in my bio for my OnlyFans, the marketing brain was like, that would get attention. Yeah.
I had a podcast with Lauren Tickler this morning. Lauren Tickler. She's like a business coach on social media. She's really good. And she said ages ago that she tried that. And then we said this morning, like, we're going to both try an OnlyFans funnel, and like, we've got to get it done like in a week just to see.
Let's do that.
If it works.
I might do a carousel, like, I'm launching an OnlyFans.
She was like, let's see who can get like the most attention or the most engagement.
Can I join in?
Yeah, you can join in. I'll tag her and tell her that.
I'm trying to be excited about it. It's like almost anything I was going to like.
And we were thinking as well, like, so you do like a fake link, but you couldn't go to like a book a call page or like to a status page. It have to be something of like value or like a gotcha type of funnel where like we're in on this. Keen. So you're on to
Yeah.
you can do it.
Yeah. I was like, what do I do? So there's a photo of me where it looks like I'm not wearing this shirt. It's going out. It's like, oh damn! I got ripped.
That's like a bit of fun. Like, you know what I mean?
I think so, man. I think yeah. Like the third thing we were talking about, right? Is just being odd.
Yeah.
Like if you walk down the street and you see something strange, you're like, what is that, right? People certainly love controversy. Like if you look at Andrew Tate, like there's a lot of controversy around him, and it's getting, love him or hate him, he's making money because of it, right? But yeah, I think if you try to be unnormal, like abnormal, you try to be uncommon. Because if you see stuff and you try to duplicate it, you're being common, even in your niche. If everyone's doing talking head content in a certain way, you start duplicating that, you're just joining the trend. What I encourage people to do is like try to be abnormal, try to be weird. Like when you go to my page, it's this weird yellow and pink.
Yeah.
It's just a strange palette. I get DMs all the time, like your content's so weird. I'm like, I'm trying to get your attention.
Yeah, it works.
I don't use danger, I use weirdness and quirky strangeness to get attention on social media, and it works for me. So I think like whatever your industry is doing, try to flip it on its head. Try to invert it. Try to do it in a different way. Yeah.
So what are listening to that as my content?
You have to break the rules, man. And I think like a famous story is like the Red Bull thing, right? And it's like, it's trying to disrupt the whole expectation around your industry and do it in a dramatically different way.
Yeah. But Dain was speaking beforehand on the podcast about how Red Bull, they like littered the streets of London, crushed cans and just left them everywhere. So
Yeah.
people woke up and walked to work. They like went to stores and they were like, where's Red Bull?
Yeah.
And stores started stocking Red Bull. I was like, that?
Yeah, so it's like 3 a.m. They sent vans all over London. They crushed Red Bull cans up before they were like a big thing. Because they couldn't get supply in the stores. People were like, we have Coke and we have coffee. It's like, why do we need Red Bull? What is touring,
Yeah.
They crush. So like, think about going to the metro train station and you just see Red Bull cans everywhere. You're walking to the bus, there's a bin, there's Red Bull cans everywhere. People were like, what the fuck is Red Bull, right? And then people started going in the stores, and then the next week they rolled their vans around and everyone started buying the products. It's weird. So you gotta break the rules. Culture Kings is weird.
It is.
You walk in a store, you go down an escalator. Then you're on a basketball court. There's a guy 40 feet in the air DJ.
It's full Zelda. It's full Zelda. Yes.
This is odd.
Speaks to me.
Yeah. It's like Culture Kings is polarizing. So I've sent clients there to do that. Like, nice spread. We go check them out. And then maybe like 38-year-old couple, and they're like, they go down, they're like, we don't belong here. And they're like, so Culture Kings is like, we exist for this tribe.
Yeah.
And they really own that. And that's a really attractive offering to people. And it turns a big part of the audience off, but in a good way. Because they monetize that.
Yeah, exactly. $600 million.
Yeah.
And for people who want to work with you and like Rival, where can they go?
Rival.com, rivyl.com. Or if you want to chat to me, literally just DM me on Instagram. I'll chat to you.
So good.
Yeah, my team can help me manage my other platforms, but I'm actually interacting, engaging on Instagram.
Yeah, the best. It's hardcore in the trenches.
I'm hardcore in there, man. I'm about to go back in. I'm going to challenge myself for the next 90 days. Because I keep telling people to do it. I'm like, I'm going to go in and do it again.
I'm do it as well.
Yeah. Every day, man. So let's make a contract with each other. I did this with Matt.
You put a piece of paper on it?
Yeah, we can, we have paper. We can write a contract.
I'll get a signature from the other notes.
Yeah. We can write it on the whiteboard and slide it.
Yeah, all right, we do that. Then we'll do that photo.
The photo of that will be the contract.
All right.
Okay, so starting tomorrow,
you
and I are going to post a piece of content every day for 90 days.
Yeah.
And if you failed, you have to eat a dog biscuit. Love.
I like it.
And every day you fail, you eat a dog biscuit. So if you skip a week, that's
how many dog biscuits
you will accumulate 7 dog biscuits.
Have you ever eaten dog biscuit?
Yeah. When I was a kid.
When you get it doesn't matter. Well, what do they taste like? It's like dog biscuits and smack.
They kind of taste like sand.
A little bit. That's great. I love sand. You eat like before already fine. Yeah, I sand all the time.
Yeah, it's a little it's like moldy sand.
That's a really good one.
But if you remember your word,
yeah,
you
yeah, sure. Like
Yeah.
Straight up. No, I eat enough weird stuff as it is anyway. So
you're eating dog biscuits and you're still honouring your word.
Oh yeah.
Listen, content.
I just won't tell anyone. I just won't tell you that I eat biscuits.
What's your goal for the 90 days? What do you want to learn? What do you want to have happen?
That's a good question.
And to be really honest.
Yeah, like I want to think like the actual thing would probably say to actually really grow my audience.
Okay.
I want to say.
How much?
So we were on like something like 14K followers, and we did a cull. That was like the worst thing because we went through and got our like audience analyzed.
Yeah.
Like, let's analyze this, like get rid of heaps. No problem, worst thing to do. However, so we've got like close to 10,000.
Yeah.
I like to get back up to like 13, 14,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And then do you know what your engagement rate is?
Because our engagement rate is pretty poo at the moment.
Yeah.
It's like, I think it's 0.5%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
And we're still like doing really well. Like in business and stuff, we're crushing it. And like we're doing well. So
Yeah.
like,
It's really low.
yeah, really low.
Yeah.
You know, this talking about the sales guy beforehand.
Yeah.
Like,
You're a killer sales guy, bro.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to work on your branding. And I got to work on my consistency. So yeah.
what's your goal?
So my goal is to get my engagement rate back up.
Nice.
So I think it's at what, 1.5? It used to be 4.7.
Cool. I want to get 5% engagement rate. I'm gonna try and do some shit. I'm trying to get because I heard that like a 6 is
Yeah. Dude, it's hectic. Dude, a 6 is hard.
I don't like it, man. The 6 is
Yeah. You have a handicap too because your percentile is smaller.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
good. I'm happy.
I'm because I go golfing. What do you hope that you learn through creating the content? Because if you've been that consistent and diligent and working with a team.
Yeah. I would honestly say messaging, like really specifically clear on our messaging, because we're still like, we're surveying our audience, we're surveying our customers, we're asking, we're talking all the time, but we're still not like 100% landed about our messaging because we're very niche. Right? Yeah. It's like personal development for business owners. That's essentially what we do. So, but we're like, what is the message that they perceive us? And we ask them something and we get clear. We're like, is there something more around? Because a lot of people that we work with, a lot of what they want is they're like, they get scared of the department's going. So like, is it that? And a lot of people work with are like, oh, we're feeling scarce right now for some reason in business, wherever it's like, oh, we do work on that. And then we have like people on leadership specifically, and they're like, okay, I want to like emotionally like become more intelligent so that I can work with my team or like deal with all the pressures of business. And we're like, so I just want to like nail my messaging.
Okay.
It would be like,
can I give you a few tools that might help your conversation?
yes.
Yeah. Do you know the 6 core human needs from Tony Robbins?
I have researched them before, off the top of my brain. No, but
anyone can
make
use
to know them.
It's pretty simple practice. I don't think Tony Robbins invented it, but he kind of like famous. And it's like a wheel and it's like a pizza. And if you have like 6 slices on the pizza, it's like certainty.
Yeah.
So these are the 6 core principles that drive all human beings, no matter what.
Yeah.
Whether you want to admit it or not. That's how we it's our freaking wired, man. Certainty. So like you can go, okay, I'm certain I'm going to go home tonight and I'm going to have a roof over my head and a job to wake up to in the morning. And I got money in the bank, I got to go groceries. Like I've got certainty in my life. Uncertainty is like the opposite of that. How the frick am I going to pay my paycheck next week?
Yeah.
Or maybe you're being sweet, but you're bored. So then you want to go on an adventure on the weekends, right? Or go, you know, if you're single, you want to go date something exciting and adventurous, right? Like the uncertainty is like mystical and like gives you serotonin and dopamine.
Yeah.
Significance. Am I seen as important from others? And that's why dudes buy Rolexes. Right, they're like, yeah, no hate on people that have Rollies. I think they're cool. And then there's love and connection to not just with a spouse, but like with those around you. And that's what I was lacking from my Yin Yang thing, right?
Yeah.
And then there's growth. Am I growing? Am I pushing myself? And then there's the last one is, am I giving to others? Right. So from your experience, you're looking at your community, would you say that their makeup of the wheel is different?
Yeah, I would say like, Rama, you were saying it was like growth, love, and like certainty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because a lot of people sort of get lost on like, what's the next project? Or should I start a new business? Or should I do this thing?
Yeah.
So no, like certainty is like direction with what they're actually going for something that feels fulfilling. One is growth personally that they really want to be better. And then the third one would be like love and connection because they actually, and a lot of the time in terms of perceivement, it might be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because it's not until they hear something emotional or I speak about something that is like, that has to do with relational connection, and they're like, oh, I really want that. And you're like, yeah, and it translates into leadership.
Do you think the conversation is predominantly what do I do versus who do I need to become?
It's who I need to become. Yeah, that would
They ask you that question?
in terms of what do they want?
So when they come to you, are they like, dude, tell me what to do? Or are they like, dude, who do I need to be? So they ask you who do they need to become?
I was in my kidding is probably like a 50.
Okay, it's like 50-50.
Yeah, some people are like, what do I need to do? But after they talk to me, like on a sales call, or they've like listened to some of the podcasts or something, they're like, oh, who do I need to become? So I'd say like the colder audience, what do I need to do? A warmer to hotter audience would definitely be, who do I need to become?
So something I learned from my friend Dave Kite, shout out to Dave, just came back from the European tour with Christo.
Yeah.
And he said that Christo does this really cool thing when he gets into a room with people. He tries to meet them at the bus station.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and puts them on the bus, and then he takes them where he wants to take them. The point is, he's like, you got to match your audience at their level, where they're at. So I think with messaging, you have to message them at frequency and at a level that they're at. Get them on the bus, and then take them where you want to go. Right? So with my content is really elementary. I try to really dumb things down, and it pisses academics off to no end. And I've had so many debates on LinkedIn, bro. my most viral post on LinkedIn was a giant argument with the CMO from Uber, my hero Margaretson, just thrashing at me. And all it was, I put up a video. It was like the difference between marketing and branding, and I just kind of did like a 60-second summary. That was kind of loose. It wasn't like super accurate, but I'm like, viscerally, these are the differences. Like, let me just give you a starting point, just break down. Dude, people on Instagram love it. They're like, man, thank you so much. This really cleared up like the difference for me. I'm like, cool. That piece of content served its mission. Funny thing is, I posted on LinkedIn, different crowd. Dudes that are like 50, that are like, you know, academics, and they have marketing genius in their products. Where they're like two of the world, you know, working in these like big corporations. They hated it because they're like, the comments were like, who's this TikTok idiot think he is? And yeah, just like really punching down on me. But
I know too, guys. I know it too.
I know too. I just don't dress like you. I have a bomber jacket on and a snapback, and everyone's just like, why isn't he wearing a suit? But the funny thing is, my Instagram community jumped in there, and it was this giant argument that went on for like 4 weeks. And Ken was managing it. Like, these people are getting upset. But the point is, like, I think, man, where are we going with this? What was the question?
It was along the point of,
I'm kind of
it was like messaging. We'll talk.
Okay, so messaging, right? So you know, the bus leaving the station.
Yeah.
So like, you have to think about your Instagram, and this is really important. Like, where are they at right now? And you can have the answers in the crazy cool, and I call it R-rated content. They're not ready for it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
you get the G, baby.
Yeah, you're gonna get the G content and maybe a little bit of like N content, but
the sexy stuff.
Yeah, the sexy stuff, but you can't hit them with the hardcore stuff. Like this is what I see happen a lot on Instagram, is they try to go in hard. You have to kind of match and mirror the frequency, the messaging, and the energy they're at when they're at it. And then this is what Alex Hormozi's mastered. We were chatting about this yesterday with the team. He's leveling his audience up.
He is, with the offers, the leads, the rest of it.
He's literally leveling them up. He's like, yeah, these 500,000 entrepreneurs, I'm just going to show them how to get to this step. And then when they're moved, he's like, cool, here's the next book. Next program. I'm seeing him train like half the planet.
It's just clicked so much. Funny, I've been studying like the Kabbalion and like laws of the universe, laws of prosperity, all the rest of that. And it's honestly, it's just the law of vibration. And it's like you're matching that law of vibration. Like, it's interesting, like if you get a bottle of like water, pour it in the ocean, it turns to water. If you get a bottle of olive oil, pour it in the ocean, then like that just turns into oil. It doesn't merge into the ocean. It just floats there. Like, it looks real weird. You gotta like clean it, right? And then like if you get an acorn, right? An acorn, a seed, and we've left it on the table. It's not going to do anything. You don't pop this, not going to do anything. Leave it on the couch, not going to do anything. But if you put that in like fertile soil, it's like there's literally just dirt touching the seed. Like there's nothing. It's not penetrating the seed. It's not going in the seed. No. Yeah, but it's vibrating. Like the dirt is the same vibration frequency as the acorn, and then the acorn starts, because of vibrating, will start sprouting things at the top and roots down the bottom. And grow into a tree.
I never thought about that.
Bro, it fucking blew my mind. I'm like, Hang on a minute. The dirt isn't, it's just touching the sides of the acorn, and then it decides, oh, I'm going to start growing now. I'm like,
it's like, what up to my boy?
literally, dirt, corn,
I got a crazy one for you that Matt shared with me last night. He's like, they studied caterpillars, and there was a certain species of caterpillar that they sprayed with this scent, and the caterpillars would negatively react to the scent. But then when it goes into what do you call it? When it
cocoon.
A cocoon, when it metamorphosizes into a cocoon, they decided that they did this in a lab with a batch of caterpillars, the certain species. And some of the cocoons they opened, and do you know what's in a cocoon?
Wow.
It just turns to goo.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it just literally turns into a goo substance.
No.
Yeah.
So this caterpillar literally just
disintegrates into goo.
That's blowing my brain.
Yeah. It blew my brain last night when Matt shared this with me. I was like, what are you talking about?
It just goes in. Imagine if we just went right.
Yeah. And so imagine if we just turn into goo and turn into like these cool like creatures with wings. I don't know how that works, right? So the cocoon, everything just turns into goo. And they cut it open, it's just goo. It just tips out, falls out on the table. Poor butterflies. But anyway, this will blow your mind. So then when it goes into metamorphosis and it turns into the butterfly, something interesting is if you open the cocoon, the butterfly will die because it needs to push through to have the blood push into its wings. So when it comes out, it can... Yeah. But they sprayed that butterfly, they sprayed the batch that didn't have a reaction to the scent because they hadn't been exposed to it when they were caterpillars. Because they only they spray it with the butterflies and they don't react to it. But then the batch that were in the lab, the butterflies remembered the smell, didn't like it, and reacted badly to it. So the point is the butterfly had a memory of when it was a caterpillar.
Yeah. So even though it turns into goo.
How does that work? But the dirt thing got me, man. So I was like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's not like they wouldn't have, where's their brain? You know what I mean?
So do you know that famous quote by Albert Einstein? It's like, everything is energy and that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Match the frequency of that which you want and you cannot help but have it. This is not philosophy, this is physics. So like that rattles me every time I listen to that. What does that mean? But how do you match the frequency of your audience?
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we vibrate on that tone? Like Nike's about, athleticism, power, action, confidence. People that fuck with that message are like, that's for me, right? CrossFit, I don't understand it. It's cool. It's like, it's insane. It's intense. It's gnarly. People that connect with that frequency, they'll vibe with it, So I think so much of, your messaging is just energy. But I think if you translate that in language, what I would do with your audience is be like, which ones are logical and which ones are creative? Which ones are thinking about doing? Which ones are thinking about being? Like you start to just split the difference. And then you just ask yourself, like, what's the common denominator between all of these? Right. So Nike did this with their audience, and they were like, the common denominator from our audience is they all want to feel a sense of greatness. That's the thing that they all want to share in common. So you see finally, what is the thing that they're desiring, and what is the emotional state that they want to have? So what I would do with your team is look at what's the emotional state that all these entrepreneurs that you work with desire to have, whether that's a sense of certainty, they're in a position of power, they have clarity, they have confidence, they have calm. Like think about the emotional state. Because like as a sales guy, you would know this, right? If you build your messaging around the best possible states, that's kind of where I would centralize your messaging from my experience with brand. That's where we look to build our messaging is at that point, the desired state that they want to have. You want to have confidence, Nike, bang. And then you just create to that. You reverse engineer from there, right? So Nike's like, okay, you want to feel confidence. Yeah. I can't just say, hey, do you feel confident? You know what I mean? You need to feel confident.
Should feel confident.
Yeah, calm down. You need to feel calm. Feel some fun. So Nike will show you pictures of someone in the moment taking action in a position of power. And you see that and you're like, I want to feel that.
Oh, yes. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, so they hit you with the visual and then they hit you with the like Serena Williams tagline, I think it was hit the ball as hard as you can. They can't see it really well. Because it's like, I feel that. I feel confident now. Now I'll go buy a pair of Nikes. They're selling you the emotional state. Harley Davidson, we talked about this before. Yeah. What's the emotional state? I want to feel freedom.
Yeah.
They're not selling you the features and benefits. They're like, hey man, if you have this thing, you'd be having it free on my way right now.
Look at this.
Yeah. You get away from the kids for a week.
Yeah.
Free, you know. They sell you the emotional state. Yeah.
See.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you. That was so valuable.
Thank you, man.
Bro, thanks for coming.
I really had fun, bro. Thanks for having me.
You are a stud.
You're a stud, bro.
Stud, thanks for coming on, man. Well,
Thanks for the work.
yeah, oh gee, the Antipodes, the beautiful water there. So, yeah, so anyone's listening, everything will be linked in the comment sections below. Thank you so much for listening to this one, and see you in the next one.
See you in the next one.